How you guys doing? My name is Joseph Googie, one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Grind. Welcome back to another week of the Pre-PT Chat. Today, we're going to be talking about habits and which ones are you harnessing currently. And so this will be in particular related to Pre-PT students, but more so, let's see if we can get Casey Coleman in here when he pops on. But more so, we'll be expounding on how you can apply that even if you are not a Pre-PT student. But this is still going to be tailored to Pre-PT students, hence Pre-PT Grind. As you guys are waiting, I want you guys to start either, like if you have questions that you guys want us to hit based on this topic, you guys can put them below. But more so, I'm still waiting for Case. But more so, I want you guys to start talking about some of the habits that you either have that have been good or maybe bad, because I know when we posted about this live, there were a few people that were saying that they did not necessarily have the greatest habits and what some of them have been and what the process has been to kind of get out of those. So let's see. What's up, brother? How you doing?
There we go. Hold on, let me close the door.
Oh, no problem, man. No problem. So the main thing that we're going to be talking about is habits, because as Casey and I will kind of share, these are some of the things that really helped set us up for PT school. And for both of us, and I know we'll share a little bit of our personal journeys as well, like in addition to kind of the things that we're going to share with you guys as a whole. But the main thing is our habits, whether good or bad, follow us, right? So whether we're going from high school to college, whether we're going from college to PT school, regardless of your transitions, our habits follow us because they become a part of us, right? Casey, before we kind of hit onto this, what are your general thoughts about habits in general and why they're applicable and why they're important for these pre-PTs to start really thinking about right now?
Yeah, so my girl mentioned this to me earlier. And a lot of people ask about balance and life balance. How do you balance PT school and whatever you're doing? Mm-hmm. And the prerequisite, quote unquote, prerequisite to that is habits, right?
Yep.
So you can't have life balances without having all your stuff in order unless you have good habits. Then that feeds into time management. Mm-hmm. So the subgroup of time management is habits. The subgroup of organization, subgroup of whatever it is, comes down to this specific practical, these everyday things that you might not even think of, maybe subconscious, maybe, just pass you on every day. And you might be wasting minutes, hours, days, weeks with these habits that lead to, a cascade of events down the line. So habits are important.
Habits are essential. And so, so one quick one, obviously, is like, if we talked about, let's say, studying, right? Your study habits follow you. If we talk about working out, so fitness is extremely important, right? So we're talking about that. That's habits, right? So for example, if I wake up today, well, it's nighttime now, here I am. So if I wake up tomorrow morning and I say, okay, I haven't worked out in the last year, I'm going to get out and I'm like, I'm on this tip, y'all. Like, I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I'm like, yo, like I am motivated. Listen to some Eric Thomas. I'm pumped, right? And so I get in my car, find the closest park where there's an open area, and I just start running. Maybe half a mile in, I'm like, yo, I'm dying because I haven't been consistent with it in the first place. But it doesn't matter because I'm working out, right? Then, I go do some of my, free body workouts and whatnot. And so I may feel good about myself. I may, be sore, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this a habit, right? And so we tell ourselves that a lot, but how intentional are we about like making habits? How intentional are we about being consistent, especially when it doesn't feel like it's even feasible, right? Studying, when you don't feel like studying, like how are you going to stay consistent? You have to make it a habit. Working out, how are you going to make it consistent when you don't want it to be? Like, because you best believe 5 days from now, even if tomorrow's my first day of working out, you best believe 5 days from now, there's going to be a morning where I'm so sore or I'm so sleepy because I was up the night before working on who knows what, right? And I'll say, well, maybe I won't go today. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. And then I say, well, maybe I can skip another day and another day. And then you realize that it really was not a habit. Or it's become a bad habit of not doing anything about it. And so we're going to talk about habits, guys. These are very serious. Studies are pretty broad in how they talk about this. I've seen everything from it takes 21 days to make or break a habit to 66 days to make or break a habit. It really depends on what you read. But the bottom line is it's all about consistency. But some of the things that we'll share with you today are what helps you become consistent. So there are books out there. There's like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There are several books out there and videos and platforms and speakers that talk about this very topic. But let's talk about one thing. So one of the things in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is talking about thinking about the end in mind, right? So if we're talking about habits, what is your end in mind, right? So now, pre-PT students, cool. Let me talk to y'all for a little bit. What is your end in mind? Easy answer, PT school. All right. So now, what do you have to do in order to get to physical therapy school? What are the habits that, regardless of how much you like them or don't like them, do you have to establish before you get to that point? Is it just about cruising or trying to do this, that? Like, is there anything that you can do now to set yourself up for that? Yes, of course. So all these little things, you realize this is going to take you every single day, day in and day out, saying, I have to be consistent with my study styles. Let's say I like to go out on the weekends. It doesn't really matter. Like if I know for a fact that Monday and Tuesday, I got examinations, I got projects, I got presentations, I know for a fact that my habit of prioritizing what I have to do first has to go ahead of anything else, right? So that also priority is also a very big part of that. So end in mind, having priorities, those are things that we can use to help us set habits, because kind of like the example I just gave you about working out, if we try to set habits for the sole purpose of setting a habit, more likely than not, if you're like me, it's not going to happen. So we have to use other pillars, right, to set ourselves up so that when we are setting up those habits, we do get to that 21 days, right? Or that 66 days where we can say, after doing this for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, it becomes a habit. For Casey and I, dropping a podcast every single week has not become, like, it's not a chore. It's a habit. It's like a week feels weird when we don't drop a podcast. A week's going to feel weird if we don't come on here live. A week feels weird if we're not on calls with people trying to help you guys out through your process, right? So this is what it takes to really kind of lay the foundation for habits. Casey, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I think a problem with habits, it might not be a problem, it might be something else, but a problem could be is that your end goal in mind might not be enough. Like, so if it's not enough, you're not going to, put the effort in, wake up early, go to work, whatever it is, you're not going to have the motivation. You're not going to put enough effort, enough time in there to get to whatever goal that is, because it's not enough for you. It's not what you really want. It's not something you see yourself doing. Your parents might have pushed you to do it. It might be a chore for you. So one thing about habits, or one thing about the goal in mind, is that it has to be enough to sustain those habits all the way through. Because if you're looking at something and whatever's at the top of that staircase is not enticing, like if it's some vegetables or it's homework up there, and you're thinking about homework, like, okay, I got to do this study habit, or say a test. Let's talk about a test. If a test is at the top of the staircase, you're like, okay, I got to do this habit of breaking up my book, breaking it down, studying. But if the top goal is PT school, or your life after PT school, your job, I think you'll be motivated much more to complete those individual habits. But exactly. I'm interested to see what the audience is saying on here. Like, what are some of your bad habits? Are you all good? Do you have bad habits? Do you have really good habits? Like tell us everything. Because we have some too, and it's good to share. It's good to see what you guys are going through. So let us know. I did some research. Like you said, Joseph, there's research everywhere. But some of the top things I like to break a bad habit or start good habits, I got 5 things, then I got 5 things we can touch on later in this broadcast, is choose a substitute for that bad habit. Yes. That's number 1. Cut out as many triggers as possible that contribute to that bad habit. That's number 2. Join forces with others. If somebody has the same bad habit or they have a good habit that you want, join forces with them. That's number 3. Number 4, like we just talked about, visualize yourself succeeding, and make sure that vision is something good and not a chore, not something overwhelming. Like a test, don't make it a test. Make it that feeling after you get right. Yeah, or exactly. make it something that feels good, like that call when you get accepted to PT school, or that first check from a job. Like make that visualization, make that goal something good. So number 5, last one, is plan for failure. That's the last one.
Break that one down for us, Casey. Why the heck should we be planning for failure, huh? I thought our
I
plan was to
mean,
succeed, huh?
we fail every day. Like, I just made a mistake getting off the wrong train or like writing something wrong down. Like,
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's just gonna happen. So if
Yeah.
it happens, you can't get too bogged down because of that, because it's gonna happen anyway. Like, we're human, nobody's perfect. Just plan for it. Like,
Yeah.
don't stress. I don't know. I'm not trying to make it complicated. Just it's simple. Like, move on. Like, that's as
Exactly.
easy. That's as simple as I can make it.
Exactly. And I think what I would even add to that, Casey, is like with absolutely anything that we're struggling with, whether it's these things that have led to bad habits, we have to start looking at everything as if we are the ones in control of it, right? So a lot of times we can say, oh man, like I have a bad like junk food habit, as if the junk food has me entrapped, right? As if I can't do something about it. We're saying, man, like I'm just not good at studying. It's just not for me. I can't really focus, as if, and obviously, like there's some things that could actually be the case, but for the most part, like you actually have control over it, right? Where have I heard this, that you should be the one happening to whatever you're doing, not the other way around. Things should not be happening to you, right? But they should be happening in spite of you. So it's taking that step and being intentional about the fact that you are the one in control. And so even with everything that Casey was saying, like you are the one in control, right? And so when you realize that and really internalize that, then you realize that that habit, whether like let's say it's a bad habit, let's talk about studying, let's talk about fitness, anything. If it is a bad habit, you have to realize that you are the one driving the car. You are the one in control. So realizing that first is what leads you to saying, okay, now what can I do to now overlay this bad habit? Can I turn it into a good habit? Is there something that I can do instead of on a consistent basis? Do I have to have a network? Do I have to find friends? Do I have to find family members? Do I have to, write it in my phone and remind myself with an alarm to do it every single day until I've hit that 21 days or 66 days, regardless of what your frame is, until that becomes my new habit? Is that what it takes? Internal and external focus of control right there, Joe. Exactly, Dr. Kyle Rice. Exactly.
What's up, Dr. Kyle Rice?
Yo, the man, the myth, the legend. So I saw Gabby said not taking study breaks. I feel like I'm always on the go and don't give myself a break. Burnout. And that's real. And then you got people on the other spectrum that always take breaks. It's like, man, I'll study for 10 minutes and, I think that's good for another hour, right? Do you know of any good podcasts to help with the subjects? We've had Eric Thomas. He's awesome. Well, I mean, books, you have 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm trying to think of podcasts. Casey, do you have any podcasts that you can think off the top of your head right now?
Pre-PT Grind podcast.
You right. You right.
But as far as habits go, not
Yeah.
necessarily. But what I had to say about that is like, it goes back to what we talked about last week a little bit. It's like if you think of if everything is your fault, you have full responsibility. Just like you said, if I can break it down even simpler, give you some tough love, everything, good and the bad, is your fault. If you take full responsibility of that, your habits it'll be more manageable because you're like, okay, that's my fault. That's my bad habit. Once you have a good one, okay, I can celebrate that good habit because that was because of me. That was my fault as well. So take full responsibility of your habits. And once you own them, once they're like, okay, that's me. That's not the school's fault. That's not the test fault. That's not this PT school didn't accept me. That's not their fault. Like, you got to own it. And once you take full control, then you have control to change it and make it a good habit.
Exactly. I agree with DJ. The Brandon Burchard Show. I've actually been listening to this podcast on repeat. Brilliant content. So Sarah, check that out. Actually, Sarah, I think I shared that with you. If I didn't, that's a great podcast to listen to. But I agree with everything you're saying, Casey. And I think even with my habits, my bad habits, I think it's all been about momentum, right? So whether it's a bad habit or a good habit, it's about momentum and some of the things that I've changed, right? So I've gone periods without like doing fitness things or whatever. But then when I'm inspired by, let's say like some of my buddies like DJ, and his wife Gabby, I mean, they do a lot of fitness things. So I remember when we were coming, I know it's weird, wife, right?
Yeah.
But I know when we were in our last year of physical therapy school, they were like, yo, we're going to the YMCA every day. And I'm like, oh, are we? Huh? And so at first it was something that I had not made a good habit, right? So then it took me being almost pressured by them. So that's where your surroundings comes in. That's where having other people that are already establishing or acting out on the habit that you are trying to now, change into, whether it's eating, fitness, or whatever. But like with fitness, I started going more consistently. So my girlfriend and I were going. DJ and his now wife were going, and several of our other peers were going at the same time. And now it became a constant thing, so that when we missed a day, it was weird. Like we felt, I felt like crappy inside. You know what I mean? Like when you don't do something consistently, and I almost felt guilty, right? Like I had let myself down. That's where it should get to, where it becomes almost a part of you. But even surrounding yourself with people when you don't feel like you're strong enough to transition into a new habit, like I said, studying is a very common one. If that's the struggle right there, who are you surrounding yourself with? Are you with people that are enabling you to keep up those bad habits? If it's become a bad habit to not really do it consistently, are you just doing it on your own, right? Call each other. You don't even have to be in the same location. Call each other up. Like I used to text some of my boys in my class, like DJ, Adam, whatever. I'd be like, yo, like, how's the studying going today, right? So you best believe it was motivating for me, especially if they were like, yo, I've been grinding all day and I've been slacking off. Now I feel like I have to push it up a notch, right? And vice versa. If I've been killing it and they were slacking, now they get the text from me and they're like, oh, yo, I better step it up. And so having those people does also add to it, because y'all, like, we understand, like, creating new habits is not easy, especially when they go against everything that you've become comfortable with. So put pillars, put people around you that remind you, people that, I mean, if it's food, if it's changing your diet, right? People that are going to be like, yo, what are you eating, right? Like if you go out to eat with your friends, like when you, if it's Chick-fil-A, if you're going to get a salad instead of your sandwich, I mean, it doesn't, Chick-fil-A is amazing, but like it doesn't really matter, but that's the point. So there are multiple ways to really support yourself in this process, but I think this is something that you guys really have to think about now. If you guys are starting out in the pre-PT process and you got several years, start it now. You will set yourself up like eons ahead of everybody else by the time you get to PT school. All right, Casey and Joseph, hit this topic. Do you think bad habits are ingrained once they are, yo, that's a good question. Are bad habits,
see all of it.
So the part that we're seeing says once they're regardless of, okay, like whether you overwrite them or not, with good habits, triggers will still bring them back. What, we don't see what's after the what. But Casey, what are your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, actually, that's the next 5 things I was going to go into. Is that the case? Like, I honestly can't say I know for sure. Like, are we born with bad habits? Are they ingrained? Like, you got to help me with that, Dr. Kyle Rice. But I'm not sure. But if you are super, like, hyper aware, first here, okay, I'll go over the 5. And like the first one I would say is what I said before, take full responsibility in order to change it. Next is to be hyper aware and understand when it happens. So even if it is ingrained, if it's ingrained, you have a good knowledge of that bad habit. So understand when it happens. That's number 2. How many times a day it happens? Where are you when it happens? Like, what environment are you in? Are you with your peers that are not helping you? Are you in the candy shop? Are you in Chick-fil-A? Are you in a bad position to bring you into that bad habit? Next is that same thing. Who are you with? And the last one is to stop worrying about what you're not doing and focus on what you are doing well. So if you focus on what you're not doing all the time, even if it's ingrained, and you're like, okay, I've been fighting with this bad habit. It's been all my life. Whatever the triggers are, remove yourself from the triggers. And now that it's removed, and you're still kind of like falling back into it, going back to that bad environment, going back into those bad habits, focus on what you're doing well. Okay, I slipped this time, but I made progress here. I didn't work out today, but I ate some carrots or some salad, whatever it is. Focus on what you're doing well instead of so much on what you're not doing to, to feed into the good habit instead of the bad habit.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, I love the question, Kyle. And I think what I would even say is it's kind of like Casey. I don't know where the line is because I feel like sometimes with something that you become passionate about, ultimately, it can go the other way. But I would say this: we wouldn't need to have this conversation if switching to a new habit was easy to establish and maintain. And I think that's what my thoughts are on it, because what becomes, okay, so let's talk about our bad habits. Our bad habits become comfortable to us, right? That becomes what we're familiar with. So if my bad habit is not exercising, like I'm comfortable with not exercising, right? So now when you have to get me to the point of exercising, yes, like down the line, let's say I'm running 2 miles every single morning for the next 5 years. I may get to a point where that's my passion, where it does not matter what, like you will not be able to get me to not exercise, right? And it happens. But I think the middle ground is really what makes this tricky. And I think this is why it's a good conversation to have. And that's why we have to set these pillars, right? And I think a lot of times it becomes very easy to give into the triggers, to put ourselves in familiar zones, right? So if my zone of being pulled into not studying is being in a given dorm room where my homies are always playing video games, and I'm always putting myself in that environment, I'm inviting those habits to essentially like start back up again. I'm exposing myself to those triggers, right? And so I think that's what makes it challenging, but I think that's where we have to become intentional with the steps that we take. We have to become intentional with who we surround ourselves with. We have to become intentional with the measures that we take. And the harder that it is, the more we have to work at it. The more we have to find other people to support us. The more we have to stick things on our mirror every single day morning so we can see them and say, yo, like, this is what I need to be doing. Because otherwise, if it was easy, it'd be a quick in and out. Kyle, I'm actually kind of curious what your thoughts are on this, man. Like, I'm curious what your thought is on your question, because it's a very profound one. And I think there is definitely a gray area when it comes to this topic.
Yeah.
If Kyle is still on.
Yeah. We'll wait for him to answer. There's a delay, so it'll come on. But like, my thing on this is even if they are ingrained, if you are aware or hyper aware, what exactly did he say? That's good. If you're hyper aware of those triggers, if they are ingrained, like if you are aware of whatever that is, if it's ice cream, if it's, being in a certain environment, if it's music, if it's anxiety from a test, you can take that trigger, do something with it, and change your bad habit and make it a good habit. So that's my kind of take on it as I dissect that question a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of times it's going back to having that end in mind. When your end in mind is clear, when you know where you want to end up and you are willing to do absolutely anything to get there. Obviously doing it the right way. If you're willing to do absolutely anything to get there, sorry, Apple dictation, butcher my question. It's all right, brother. But like, if you're willing to do anything to achieve whatever goal that is, whether it is, succeeding academically or health-wise, keep those things in mind at all times, because regardless of whether we're exposed to those triggers, those environmental triggers, regardless of what those triggers are, or regardless of the comfort that we find in going back to those bad habits, we have to keep that end in mind clear. We have to keep those goals clear, and they have to be strong ones. They have to be ones that we really believe in. Because otherwise it's going to be very easy to kind of pull away from them and fall back into our not so great habits. And this really goes into like how you develop your schedule every single day, how you study, how you look at your future. And it's outside of physical therapy, because I know we always talk about PT school, but this is really life things, right? These are things that Casey and I have been really encountering in every aspect of our lives currently. And so whatever we apply academically, we have to apply to our social life. We have to apply to our family life. We have to apply to absolutely everything that we do. And so I think those are my thoughts on that. And nice. I would also say what?
Wesley, did I talk with you on email during email through Brett? Let me know, because I think that's you. If that's you, what's up? Glad to see you here. Glad you got all the links and stuff in my email, so good to see you. Sorry, I had to shout him out. We talked on email a couple days.
What's good, Wesley? Oh, yep, that's him.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yay! There we go. Glad you made it.
Hey man, what's up, Wes? And so I think a lot of it is like building bricks, and I've used this analogy earlier today on a conversation I had with Dwayne Haskins. Um, building habits, building good habits is like building a house with bricks. The reason why I say that is because there's two options. I can either build a house with bricks, or I can take 4 large sheets of wood and create 4 walls. Either way, I can have 4 walls, right? But if I take the time to build my house with bricks, laying brick after brick after brick with the right foundation, then after building, I mean, obviously, if I stop halfway, I don't have a protected home, right? But if I consistently do it, if I consistently build on my good habits by repetition and exposure to the right environments, avoiding my triggers and so on and so forth, then I do honestly believe that we can get to a point where it's hard to get there. It takes time and dedication to get there, where we can actually get over that hump, over that wall, where it almost feels, off. It almost feels outside of yourself to even think of going back to your bad habits.
Well, if there are any questions, drop them below. But when you talked about building a house, there's a podcast I listen to, and he always talks about laying the 5 bricks. Like every day, whatever your habit is, if it's like talking to other people, if it's preparing for an interview, working out, do that thing or do a part of that 5 times a day. Talk to 5 people 5 times a day. And once you have that repetition, if you do the math 5 times, 7 days a week, then weeks times month, if you get to the end of the month, if you get to the end of the week, you have how many reps in, how many sets do you have in of breaking that bad habit? So when the research says you got to do it, 20 times or 60 times, if you do it 5 times a day, that exponentially decreases it, slices it in half.
Yeah.
And that's much easier to manage instead of 2 months, 3 months, 3 weeks. So lay the 5 bricks as well as you can and do it every day. And do it in small increments, whatever you can do that. Make sure it's attainable, then move up. So lay the 5 bricks.
Exactly. I love it, man. I love it. And as we're kind of getting to the conclusion of this live, we're going to be coming here every single week, guys. So if you're watching this after the fact or here live with us, feel free to send us or comment below with topics that you guys want to hear us talk about. We always want to hit things. Every topic that we bring up is something that someone has suggested to us. It's something that someone has asked us to expound on and talk about our viewpoints on it. And so if you guys have any topics that you have not seen or really are struggling with right now, we can hit them live. We can also talk to you guys personally and really kind of talk to you about how to kind of cope or get through whatever it is that is. And so comment below, send us a message at our Pre-PT Grind, Facebook group. Send us a message. We will get it, and we will always talk about it. We always want to add value to you guys. We don't want to talk until we feel good about ourselves. We always want to do nothing but add value. So without anything else really to add, make sure you catch our podcast from this week. If you guys have not caught it, it's a great episode talking about building your all-star team as a pre-PT student, which is absolutely essential and will be very beneficial to you guys as you guys are building your network, not only physically, but also virtually, which you guys have started to do by being on the Pre-Doctor Physical Therapy Students page and also the Pre-PT Grind pages and platforms. Website is dropping in a few days. Be on the lookout for it. Be on the lookout for it. It's been a pleasure, man. Casey, you have anything else before we wrap up?
Throw us a review on iTunes as well. If you like our podcast, subscribe. Make sure you listen to all of them. We're on episode 20 this week.
It's
crazy. Been 20 episodes. Crazy. And, man, we have, a lot of downloads, a lot of listens. I didn't think it would be this big as it is now. So throw us a review if we helped you in any way. And that increases our rank on iTunes so more people can find out about us, your peers, high school students, anybody you know who is in the same place as you, who needs something like this. Throw us a review, and that'll help them out as well.
Exactly. Y'all have a good evening. Sarah, it's been a pleasure. To all of you, it's always a pleasure to serve you guys. Blessings. Have a good night.